In the year 2035, artificial intelligence, like cell phones in the past, has gradually penetrated into the life of every human being. This world had become an incredibly technological world. The convenience of life due to the use of artificial intelligence continued to grow, but the over-reliance on technology had destroyed many jobs. Almost all factories now employed machines and robots. Corporations using artificial intelligence dramatically increased productivity and lowered costs, which caused massive unemployment around the world. Eventually, this state of affairs led to the creation of a nationwide wave of resistance to artificial intelligence among humans. People demanded that the use of AI be cut down immediately and that they be given their jobs back. However, such resistance from ordinary working people could not change the course of technological progress. In the end, countless people were forced to risk their lives in games created by Mastermind for the entertainment and gambling of the upper elite. Players put their lives on the line to please those at the top of the food chain. The game was called Gold Game. The player who would go on to win in this survival game would be able to acquire untold riches, and eventually even seize control of Mastermind, rising above all social classes. Today, Chen Mo, along with the other newcomers, was also forced to participate in the Gold Game. He believed that only by winning the game could he find her. Chen Mo is a former researcher of Mastermind. One of the players was anxiously telling the other newcomers that he had heard that if a player died in the game, he would also die in reality. He was desperately trying to find out from the other players if this information was true or still false. A player with the name Wang Qiang turned to him and told him that it was all true. He even asked about the fact that the player had not seen the losers of the game being electrocuted through their helmets. Wang Qiang also pointed out that if one tried to remove the helmet, it would count as a violation of the rules. Therefore, an instantaneous electric shock would follow, so there would be no way to escape from the current situation. Wang Qiang was surprised that whether the man thought that money was so easy to get and without any risk. However, he pointed out that the man could still get out of the game. Upon hearing Wang Qiang's words, the player was incredibly frightened. He stammered and said that he was forced to play to pay off his debts. Therefore, if he quit the game, his life would end anyway, so he had no other choice. Zhao Yukai, standing beside him, gave him a bloodthirsty look, informing him that he could no longer wait for the game to start. After all, he had heard that there would be no punishment for killing in the game. He smirkingly asked the other players not to die too quickly, as he didn't want his fun to end so quickly. Chen Mo paid attention to Zhao Yukai's words, noting in his mind that this person had only come to the game to kill other players. However, he had expected something like this because such psychopaths were everywhere. Finally, the gates of the dungeon began to open. The game welcomed players to the Gold Game. The game then asked all the players to walk through the gate that opened and enter the dungeon. Chen Mo looked around, inspecting what the first level of the game looked like. It was funny to him that the first level of the game only had a huge empty hall. Right in front of the players, a girl began to materialize from the data. The girl greeted the players with a smile, informing them that she was the host of this game and her name was Xiao Tu. After that, she decided to explain the rules of the game to them. Since they were only at the beginner level, she believed that they would only have to memorize the rules she would tell them in order to pass the first level. After that, she epically closed her eyes and snapped her fingers. In the same instant, a game window materialized in front of the players, stating that the number of survivors in this round should be no more than 3, and the boss was completely invincible. Sitting on the giant game panel, she smiled, wondering if they understood such simple rules. The game window began to slowly evaporate and Xiao Tu jumped down. Stepping on the floor with both feet, she bowed slightly, letting them know that this was the end of the explanation of the rules. She then wished them a pleasant game. Her body began to dissolve as she informed them that she hoped to see any more of the surviving players. She even laughed at the end of her words. Zhao Yukai did not understand at all why these were all rules. He tried to ask the other players if any of the other players understood what the girl was even talking about. The rules were simple, so Chen Mo immediately remembered about her saying that only 3 or less people could survive. So Chen Mo realized that out of the 10 players, 7 players had to die in order for the rest to pass on. He couldn't understand how this was even possible. However, he and the other players had no time to think. as a giant snake began to materialize in front of them. The other players couldn't understand what was in front of them. The giant snake's mouth was already trying to swallow the players. Chen Mo and some players rushed to flee from the snake, while a few other players froze in place in fear. Other players advised to run and not stand still. The giant snake instantly swallowed 2 players who froze in fear. Players didn't realize how they even needed to get through this level. They didn't understand how they could dodge the level boss and how they could defeat it. Chen Mo told them all to scatter and not to stand in a general heap. He was still pondering over what this level was even about. The guy couldn't believe that 7 players had to die in order for the remaining players to pass on. At this moment, the snake had definitely targeted Chen Mo and was following him on his heels. The giant snake was practically at his feet and had already opened its mouth wide. However, at this moment, the guy abruptly bounced to the left towards the pillar next to him. The giant snake did not follow him, but swept past him. Chen Mo noticed that after the snake swallowed the 2 players, the tail of the snake became noticeably longer. In addition, the giant snake could only turn 90 degrees when moving. He finally made the assumption that this level was based on the famous snake video game. Assuming it was a snake game, he remembered that the snake's head could only turn at right angles. So as long as he keeps in a 90-degree sector in front of the snake's head, then at a 45-degree angle, it would take the snake 2 moves to bite him. Such a maneuver would only give a slight delay from the inevitable, but it would help to last longer in this game. By this point, Zhao Yukai was hiding behind one of the pillars, but the giant snake saw him. Zhao Yukai cursed and rushed to escape from the giant snake, completely unaware of how to fight the boss of this level. He wasn't going to die so easily. After all, he had some pretty big plans for the game. The next moment, he was incredibly shocked and scared when the giant snake's mouth appeared right in front of him, and the snake tried to devour him. But at the last moment, Zhao Yukai was able to bounce aside, and the snake swept past him. Getting up from the floor, he was surprised, not realizing how the snake was able to overtake him and appear in front of him. Zhao Yukai didn't have time to think about the matter properly, as the giant snake had already appeared behind him. He rushed to run as fast as he could, realizing that the giant snake was targeting him. Running at full speed, he tried to think of something in a hurry, because if things continued like this, his death was only a matter of time. At this moment, behind one of the pillars, he saw Chen Mo standing there. He instantly decided that the guy should die instead. Zhao Yukai began to run around the column behind which Chen Mo was standing. Chen Mo, on the other hand, was thinking that Mastermind would never create a level that was impossible for a player to pass. Therefore, he felt that the key in passing the initial level lay in the second rule. In his opinion, the snake was completely invincible, but nowhere did it say that it couldn't die on its own. According to the rules of the snake game, if the head crashes into its own body, it's game over. So the guy decided that if he kept circling the snake in a 90-degree sector, then it would then take the snake at least 100 moves to reach him, which meant that in that time, the snake could crash into itself. After thinking about the current situation, Chen Mo decided that he couldn't just stand there and wait for his death, so he decided to try and carry out his plan. However, at this moment, Zhao Yukai appeared behind him and grabbed him by the shoulders. Zhao Yukai began to hold him down as the snake approached them. Zhao Yukai then pushed the guy directly into the snake's mouth, saying goodbye to the guy. Chen Mo flew straight into the mouth of the giant snake, which had already opened its mouth to swallow him. At this moment, it was as if his entire life flashed before Chen Mo's eyes. He remembered the moment when his sister offered to taste the new dish she had prepared. The guy was even surprised and slightly disappointed, as he realized that at the threshold of death, one does see something similar from their lived life. His sister assured him that she was no longer a child and that the wound on her arm was just a scratch. She noted that seeing her brother eating the food she had prepared with gusto was the best reward. The girl suddenly declared confidently that she was Jin Can and that she hadn't eaten rice for so many years for nothing. From this day forward, she wanted to feed her big brother only the best dishes. There was sadness and resentment in the guy's voice as he called his sister a cheat. After all, she had promised to cook for him every day, but she hadn't kept her promise. Besides, the meal she cooked at that moment turned out to be the last one. One accident shattered their peaceful life. Chen Mo lost his job as a researcher at Mastermind, so in an instant, everything collapsed. When he came home, he asked that his sister not to worry about him. However, his sister claimed that her brother was talking nonsense and that she would never leave him. At that moment, he thought about how his sister would blame him for the situation, but she hadn't abandoned him. Jin Kankan asked her brother not to worry, informing him that she would figure out a way for them to make money on her own. She claimed that she was no longer the little girl who'd done nothing but hide behind his back. The girl decided to think about what could be done about their situation. And in the end, Jin Kankan went to the damn game, so the guy incredibly blamed himself for everything, because his sister never came back. Even though half of his body was already in the giant snake's mouth, the guy kept fighting back, believing he had to survive and find his sister. He couldn't let himself die in this cursed place. The guy tried with vigor to get out of the giant snake's mouth. He managed to do so, but in the same instant, he realized that he was missing the lower half of his body. Falling to the floor, Chen Mo despaired that he couldn't fight anymore. He was so unwilling to die in this cursed and hated game for him. The guy's eyes slowly closed as his life came to an end. Suddenly, the system's game panel appeared in front of his eyes. The system reported that researcher Chen Mo had been detected, and then his ID was listed. After that, the game reported that the administration system had been successfully activated. The guy's metadata emerged in some strange space. He didn't understand what was going to happen next, or where he was even. The system reported that it was only bound to the Chen Mo player. The system then activated administrative privileges for the Chen Mo player. He had access to Administrator Privilege Level 1, Code Edit, Free Edit Character Points, for himself only. The guy was surprised to hear about some kind of system in the game. Looking at the game window in front of him, Chen Mo thought that it was similar to the attribute panel, where one could add character points and more to the game. Now, hope began to flicker in his soul that he could rectify the current situation. After thinking about his current advantages, Chen Mo decided that he should emphasize on agility to increase his speed. But just as he was about to crank agility to the maximum, he abruptly stopped. At that moment, he realized that this approach was fundamentally wrong. After all, he was just increasing his speed to keep running, and that wouldn't solve anything. So he decided that right now, what he needed most was strength. The system reported that the attribute was successfully increased. The system noticed that the player's original data was missing, so it asked him if he needed to restore the data. The system then decided to give him advice. According to the system's advice, the guy could edit and change attributes at any time. In addition, all of his attributes would increase with each level increase. With his new ability, he could maximize an individual attribute at any time, and in the future, as his level and attributes increased, the ability would become even more powerful. He now believed that he didn't care about the rules of the game, and that he would dictate his own rules in the game. The system reported that the guy's strength started to increase. Then the data recovery started, and the guy's lower body started to transform in the game again. He had just recovered and continued to examine his body, and the giant snake was already behind him. The giant snake aimed at him and opened its mouth wide to swallow him. This time, the guy didn't resist and let the giant snake swallow him. The snake was about to crawl further for its next victim, when suddenly the snake had an unpleasant sensation. The snake's mouth began to slowly open, against the snake's will. With his right hand, the guy opened the snake's mouth, and with his left hand he grabbed the snake's tongue. The guy was incredibly angry and pulled the snake's tongue and wondered if that was how the snake liked to eat. He couldn't wait to see who would eat who today. So he went ahead and bit the snake's tongue. The snake extremely disliked it, so the snake spit it out and tossed it aside. The guy easily grouped himself and landed on the floor completely unhurt. The rest of the players looked at the guy with horror and fear, completely not realizing whether the guy in front of them was human or not. Looking at the giant snake in front of him, Chen Mo thought about whether his attack on the snake had any effect. However, his past attack on the snake had proven that the snake was not invulnerable to physical attacks. While in the admin panel, he realized that with his current strength, it was unrealistic to think that he would be able to kill a level 1 boss. Even if he sacrificed everything else to maximize his strength, it would be difficult for him to deal with the snake. All he could do was only hold the boss back for a moment. So he decided to stick to his original plan and put all the characteristic points into agility. Chen Mo decided to use the rules of the snake game to make the snake's head attack the snake's body. Taking advantage of his speed, he began to deftly dodge the boss's attacks. He remembered that in the original snake game, the game ended when the snake's head touched its body. As far as he remembered, that was the only weakness of the snake in this game. While he was thinking about his plan, the snake was already back by his side and wanted to eat. However, with his current speed, he quickly dodged the snake's mouth, and then stood next to the snake's body, acting as bait. Staring intently at the snake's head, he wanted to see if the snake would bite itself. The giant snake's mouth once again tried to swallow such an annoying meal. However, at the last moment, Chen Mo jumped aside and the snake mouth tried to eat its own body instead. In the next instant, he looked up to see what had happened, and what he saw stunned him. He was amazed that the giant snake had some sort of defense mechanism, so the snake didn't devour itself, but the head just turned to the right side and the snake crawled on. The guy realized that his assumption was correct, and that he had found the snake's weakness. However, Mastermind had already eliminated the boss's weakness. So without thinking for long, the guy hid behind the pillar at high speed again so that the snake wouldn't notice him. After the boss's only weakness disappeared, everything went back to the beginning. Therefore, the guy began to guess that this kind of course of action was in accordance with the rule that the boss was invincible. Now, according to him, the players must believe in the rules, and that everything will only end when there are only 3 or less people left alive. Thus, all players are trapped. As soon as players believe in the rules of the level, they will inevitably start killing each other, falling into a hopeless situation from which there is no return. This is exactly the version of events, though the administrators of the game to see. At this point, the guy remembered that he is no longer a simple player, so if he can cope with the defense mechanism of the boss, he can succeed. However, for this plan, he needs someone who can get the boss's attention. Then he will have to use external force to make the snake's head touch the snake's body. Looking towards Zhao Yukai, the guy decided that he was the right person for this plan. Pulling the hood of his jacket over his head, the guy made a decision, noting that he now had manpower. 3 men stood near the column. One of the men noticed that the guy had disappeared from sight. Zhao Yukai told them to watch the flanks. Zhao Yukai asked them to listen to him. He said that they just needed to hide in this place because according to the rules, they could pass this level if there were only 3 people left, and there were just 3 of them. Zhao Yukai added that they didn't need to look for trouble unnecessarily. Zhao Yukai became their boss. One of the men remarked that their boss was simply brilliant. He thought about the fact that a guy with extraordinary strength has some trump cards up his sleeve, and that maybe he could kill a level boss. Zhao Yukai swept up that if the guy could really kill the level boss, he would save them the trouble and they would win without doing anything. However, at this moment, Chen Mo appeared behind their backs. He inquired how it was that they were going to win without doing anything. The men were surprised by his sudden appearance. As he approached them, he declared that they were acting as if he did not exist. Instantly, he appeared right in front of him, causing them to press their bodies closer to the pillar. Chen Mo grabbed Zhao Yukai by the throat and pinned him against the wall. He told him and the others not to move, because if his hand accidentally slipped, Zhao Yukai might drop out early. Zhao Yukai asked the guy to stay calm and discuss the situation. He admitted that what he did towards the guy was not very cool. Plus, he felt that they should work together in the current situation. However, the guy indicated that he might just kill him and team up with the other players. Gasping for air because of the lack of air due to his compressed throat, Zhao Yukai admitted that he was wrong and asked the guy for mercy. At this moment, his subordinate tried to attack Chen Mo, telling him to let his boss go. Since the man was so insistent, Chen Mo threw Zhao Yukai towards the man. Zhao Yukai was still trying to beg for mercy, and his subordinate was already out of the game. But he finally gave up and tried to insult the guy. However, Chen Mo didn't let him finish and stamped his face into the floor, stepping on his head with her foot. Chen Mo admitted that he already had a plan that if it worked, he would be able to end the giant snake. But to realize his plan, he needed a bait to distract the snake. Therefore, he pointed out that Zhao Yukai had the choice to either become the snake's bait or die right now. Since time was short, the guy told him to make a choice immediately. In an attempt to survive, Zhao Yukai pitifully shouted out that he would become the bait for the giant snake. He believed that he did not run away shamefully, but because he was wise. After all, a wise person knows when to give in. Zhao Yukai believed that he needed to pass this test first, and then he would have many more opportunities to take revenge on the guy. Chen Mo threateningly told them to run forward, noting that if he saw Zhao Yukai idling, he wouldn't mind taking his life before dealing with the level boss. Running away, Zhao Yukai asked if the guy could match the beast. His subordinate asked if they would really listen to the guy and act as bait. The man felt that this job was too dangerous, and they had already lost one of their brothers, so they couldn't risk it again. Zhao Yukai smirked, noting that he had never said anywhere that he would be doing this on his own. Approaching the other players, Zhao Yukai pointed out to them that if they didn't want to die, they should go and become the bait. They would have to attract the beast to this place for him, since he had already figured out how to deal with the monster. However, another man noted that he couldn't handle it. Another player thought that if Zhao Yukai knew how to defeat the boss, then he should go and carry out his plan himself, and that he shouldn't drag them into a dangerous venture. However, Zhao Yukai walked up to him and simply kicked him in the stomach, causing the man to fly off a great distance. In the same instant, while the man was holding his stomach in pain, a snake appeared behind him. In an instant, the snake's mouth slammed shut, and the snake swallowed the man. The remaining players from this group were incredibly frightened by the sight they saw. Zhao Yukai yelled at them, informing them that he had been too kind to them. He even pointed out that whether they wanted to believe him or not, if they didn't do as he said, their lives would be instantly cut short. The remaining 3 players hesitantly began to do as he said. He even indicated that they should run to do his bidding. Suddenly, he grabbed the blonde girl's arm. The poor girl was terrified. He told her to stay. The girl was terrified, not realizing what else he wanted from her, since she was already going to do what he had told them before. Zhao Yukai hugged her, informing her that he would give her a choice, as she could work for him from now on. He pointed out that when everyone else died, the 3 of them would pass this test. If she refused, she could join the other players on their way to the grave. The man ran away from the boss, screaming that Zhao Yukai had just sent them to their deaths. The girl also pointed out that they would only be able to survive when there were 3 or fewer players left. The girl kept running, but kept yelling that they must not let the scum succeed, and asked the man to run. At the same instant, the boss ate one player. Seeing what happened to the other players, the frightened blonde girl agreed to join Zhao Yukai. She said that as long as Zhao Yukai didn't kill her, she would do whatever he asked. His subordinate wondered if their plan would work. After all, the girl wouldn't be able to last long running away from the monster. However, Zhao Yukai felt that it would be better if she couldn't accomplish the task at hand. Since then, they would still be able to reduce the number of survivors. Looking at the blonde girl, he believed that he couldn't die here and was already anticipating his good life that he would be able to enjoy after passing the challenge. Turning his attention to the guy, he considered that he just didn't expect him to act like this, but now he would definitely kill this player. The girl fought desperately for her life, but at that moment the monster caught up with her and she was eaten. His subordinate noticed that the head of the snake was moving towards them. Zhao Yukai realized that the perfect moment had arrived. Now they needed to make it seem like they were cooperating with the guy and wait for the right opportunity. He shouted loudly to the guy that they were about to bring the boss to him. Looking at Zhao Yukai with a look full of pity, Chen Mo thought that he was a walking problem. As a result, he decided that as soon as he had the chance, he would eliminate such an unstable element before it caused another problem. The guy asked them if they had played the snake game before. He then pointed out that if the snake's head hit the snake's body, the game should end. The man was surprised if this was such an easy way out of their situation. However, Zhao Yukai informed that it was nonsense and that he had already tried it when the snake chased him. But that option was useless. He pointed out that the snake had a defense mechanism. When the snake's head approached its body, the head would suddenly dodge sharply, so the snake's body and the snake's head would never make contact. In addition, he believed that if it was that simple, the guy would have already accomplished this task by himself and defeated the boss. At this moment, Chen Mo appeared behind him and kicked him on the back, telling him to just stop talking nonsense and do as he commanded. He then abruptly walked back to his seat. Holding his back in pain, Zhao Yukai shouted that they would do what the guy asked. The girl ran as hard as she could and asked Zhao Yukai for help, and Zhao Yukai told her to go jump to the inner side, as it was the safest place there. Zhao Yukai, the man and the girl were able to bounce to the side. At this moment, the giant snake mouth targeted Chen Mo once again. A sly smile appeared on Zhao Yukai's face as he felt that there was a chance for him. He already thought that the guy would finally be finished. However, at this moment, Chen Mo focused all of his characteristics point on strength and struck the giant snake with all his might, which drastically changed its trajectory. Zhao Yukai was shocked by what the guy had done, but he was even more shocked that the giant snake's mouth was now approaching him. Would the snake eat such an insolent Zhao Yukai? And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.